In today's age of monosyllabic phrases and grammatically horrifying SNS lingo, it is so commendable to have a writer like him who can so adeptly weave Shakespearean phrases like phlegmatic propensities and puerile denials with Shashi Tharuresque aplomb in his work. This is what the Hindu had to say about his work. Hello everyone, I am Prem Sinha, editor-in-chief of Ramjas Political Review. For the second episode of Ramjas Political Review Global Village, we have Mr. Tuhin Sinha, author of around 16 books and the national spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP, for a small episode on the politics of Jharkhand. Welcome, sir, to our journal.
Thank you.
I would like, yes, sir. Mr. Sinha, one of the most interesting cases in Jharkhand history for me is the Khatian. The Jharkhand definition of local persons, the social benefits to such local persons bill 2022, which is the formal name of this bill. So let me summarize the most recent update pertaining to Khatian to the audience. Former CM Hemant Soren had called the recommendations by the Attorney General illogical and unreasonable in the month of December and passed it again in the Jharkhand State Assembly. I think it was in the last week of December without adding the recommendations of the court. This has been the case with many such avatars of this bill. It has been stuck in an infinite loop. What is your understanding of the situation, sir? How do you think? What do you think is the future of Khatian, and how do you think we should be going about it?
Well, the Khatiyan obviously stems from the fact that Adivasi and local indigenous interests need to be protected. But to give a cutoff date as 1937 is what was extremely unrealistic. So it's a complex issue. The BJP is still mulling over the various aspects of it. We are discussing it with all the stakeholders. But beyond that, I don't think in the present situation, the bill needs to be passed hastily. I think it requires a fresh round of deliberation, and obviously the Hemant Soren government, or when it used to exist till 2 months back, was in a very unexplained haste to pass on these bills, to give a different religious status to Adivasis. All of that was meant to attract a certain, or to captivate a certain vote bank for his party. But I think in the larger interest of the state, the bill requires more deliberation and more consultation, which we would be doing in the time to come. And since the political situation is also very fluid in Jharkhand, for the time being, the Khatian issue is on hold.
Right, sir. Right, sir. So the bill has a provision to reserve the grade 3 and grade 4 jobs to locals as well. Does the BJP agree with this idea of reservations? Because Article 16 of the Constitution guarantees equal right to all citizens in terms of employment. And according to Article 16(3) of the Constitution, only Parliament has the right to impose any kind of condition in the matter of employment under Section 35A under a special provision. The state legislature has no right to legislate on this issue. Even in AVS Narasimha Rao and others versus Andhra Pradesh and others, it had been put that the right to impose any kind of condition in the matter of employment is vested only in the Indian Parliament. And in Satyajit Kumar versus State of Jharkhand, the Supreme Court declared 100% reservation given by the state in scheduled areas as totally unconstitutional. So, what is the BJP's view on this, apart from your own independent idea of this situation?
Well, as a party, we have always believed in one nation, and with seamless movement of people from one part of the country to the other. At the local level, some of our leaders also in the past have advocated reservation of a certain percentage of jobs for locals. But then, 100% reservation is absolutely unrealistic. It reeks of a very myopic mentality, because Jharkhand today has a GDP of some 4,33,000. Last year, 2023-24, had a GDP of some 4,33,000 crores, which would roughly convert into $53 billion, which considering the vast natural resources that it houses, is on the lower side. And till such time that fresh investment from outside flows very freely, the development of state becomes is going to be very difficult, or probably the escalation of the GDP to a level where it can be a pivotal player in the larger Viksit Bharat goals will be very difficult. But when you impose 100% reservation for locals, or when you even desire to do that, because rightly the courts have struck it down, or rightly the courts have held it back, obviously your whole intent, the intent of JMM and Hemant Soren was extremely myopic. And that let me extrapolate it to a larger political situation. Today, on the eve of 2024 elections, I can say this with full responsibility that the entire difference between the BJP and its allies on the one hand and the INDI or so-called INDI alliance, if at all it exists in a cohesive form, is very clear. On the one hand, you have an alliance which is thinking about the next 20 years, which is determined to work under the vision of Prime Minister Modi to achieve the larger goals of Viksit Bharat. And on the other hand, you have a coalition which is extremely myopic in its thought process, which will go to any extent to divide people on the lines of caste, creed, local sentiments. And I think JMM is a very crucial component of that mentality, which is focused only and only on immediate present uh, vested political interests without giving a thought to the future of the country.
So do you think, in one word, do you think that the BJP support this whole idea of reserving the grade 3 and grade 4 jobs to the local person? Yes or no? Do you think that?
See, like I said,
Apart from
as a thought, the party has always believed in a casteless society, number one, and also when we talk about Ek Bharat, Shresth Bharat, we believe that people across the country should have free and unlimited access to any part of the country. So in the Northeast, if you realize, the Northeast was a very closed area. Kashmir was a very closed area till Article 370 had been abrogated. We ensured that the ghettoization of Kashmir ended with abrogation of Article 370. Over here in Jharkhand, obviously Adivasi sentiments are very important because they constitute more than 26% of the population of the state. But having said that, 100% reservation is no solution. We have to figure out a way in between. That could not even mean reservation. But like I said, the party is treading on it very cautiously because we know that JMS is probably in its last legs. It may not survive beyond the next election because with the series of or with the range of graft charges which are there against JMM, obviously the leader is in for a very long time in jail and the party may not survive. So BJP in power in Jharkhand would be devising a very careful policy on all of these issues while factoring in the local sentiments. We will ensure that maximum impetus is given to investments from outside the state, possibly outside the country, and that the industrial progress of the state is extended beyond the conventional centers of Jamshedpur and Dhanbad.
Right, sir. So you talked about how the BJP would bring up some policies, some concrete policies on these issues. But I would like to bring another aspect of the same. The Babulal Marandi government in 2004 had decided to have 1964 to be the cutoff year, causing an uproar due to which he had to resign from the government. The Raghuvar Das government in 2016 decided that anybody who had been living in the state for the last 30 years would be decided a local, which caused a humongous uproar in the whole state. So, what is the BJP's policy on this? Why does it keep changing from time to time? And how do you think the BJP is planning to tackle it in the
I
future?
think overall, it's a very sensitive issue for the state because, like you mentioned, every time a cutoff date is announced, it leads to furor from some part or the other. So in a situation like this, obviously the BJP cannot have a fixed policy because, local sentiments are important. At this point of time, a lot of it will have to do with the local leadership who becomes the chief minister. But even if you look at the local leadership, even before we come to power, BJP provides you the ideal mix of tribal and non-tribal leadership. The problem with the present dispensation is that it skews very heavily on the one side. And not just why I only talk about tribals. In the northern parts of Jharkhand, Dumka, and Sahibganj and all, the way illegal migrants have been settled, or their settlement has been facilitated by the JMM, even that poses a big security threat. We have seen, demography distortion in those areas. So I think this entire issue cannot be, the domicile issue cannot be isolation. The cutoff date is just one part of the whole thing. But I think, the larger thrust over here needs to be more cohesiveness between the tribal and non-tribal population, which is where most of the protests or most of the opposition to these bills arise. So I think BJP would be tackling it with greater political maturity than the JMM has done. But to tell you the specific would not be possible, because it would depend to a large extent on who becomes the chief minister and what the leader eventually decides about. The local
Right,
leadership.
sir. So let's say that the local leadership would want, let's say the local leadership would support in the future. The local leadership would want to have 100% reservations for the
That
people,
won't be
for the
possible.
tribe.
I can tell you.
That wouldn't be possible.
I can tell you that
Would the
won't be
BJP
possible.
succumb to the BJP? Would the BJP succumb to the pressure if the local government?
No.
Would
I can precise. I'm precisely going to tell you that BJP can never. Local leadership, even the local leadership would never advocate 100% reservation. That's the difference between BJP and other parties.
Okay.
It would be a much fairer deal for both sides. But like I said, I won't have the mandate to spell out the specifics of it, because that eventually has to be decided by the local leadership, which includes the then chief minister and the party president and some of the senior leaders. But 100% reservation, or even anything in excess of 50% is somewhere where any which way the BJP would kind of draw the red flag.
So through these reservation policies for the tribals, let us assume that it would even be somewhere around 40 to 50. Are we not moving towards the loss of nerves idea of Dr. Verrier Elvin, who wanted a national park sort of protection for the tribals through such reservation-based policies? It was also brought up to Mahatma Gandhi, who refused the whole idea, saying that it represented something like separate electorates. So, what is your idea on this?
See, unfortunately, the tribal and the Dalit communities, they haven't had leadership of the nature and stature of B.R. Ambedkar, or Jaipal Munda. In fact, if you've read about Jaipal Munda, he was a very visionary leader in his time, and probably the only Adivasi representative in the Constituent Assembly. So unfortunately, both of these communities have not had post-independence leadership of that stature, because probably they would have advocated growth and prosperity of their communities very differently. But having said that, in the present, if you look at the schemes of the central government post 2014, in most of the central government schemes, whether it is Nal Se Jal Karyakram, which has ensured direct tap water connection for over 13 crore people, whether it is the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, which has ensured that our sanitation cover has gone up from 39% to nearly 100%, the primary beneficiary has been the Adivasi community. If you look at the quantum of village roads, one is the national highway. The national highway stretch has obviously gone up from 91,000 kilometers in 2014 to 1,45,000 kilometers. But even the rural road construction, which is not a part of this, has seen exponential growth. And who are the prime beneficiaries of it? It is the Adivasi population. So for the first time, even within the Adivasi population, marriage outside the community is far, has been happening in far greater numbers than ever before. So what I'm saying is that development, when we talk about development, reservation is an important component, as maintained in the Constitution, and that is we have continued it over the last many years, and probably it would continue forever. But that cannot be the only way to uplift a community. If Rahul Gandhi believes, probably he has been going about saying that the reservation percentage across the country would be far in excess of 50%. I think that is a recipe for regression. And that is one of the reasons why the other side, which does not put impetus on growth and prosperity, but rather believes that, extending reservation is the only option, is out of political favor from the people of the country. So I think empowerment happens in different ways, which is towards providing basic facilities. If today the Naxal movement is down by, or the Naxal incidents are down by a good 70-75%, that is also because for the first time after independence, a massive sense of belongingness has been provided to that community. And that happens when you get 24/7 electricity, when you have water connections, when you get fiber optic connectivity and internet access in the poorest and the remotest of villages. So I think, creating and improving human capital is more important for us than obviously temporary measures like reservation, which the opposition finds it very inconvenient.
Right, sir. Right, sir. So let's say that let's assume that the government goes ahead with the idea of 1932 being the cutoff year. What if somebody's ancestors had been living here before that year and they did not have any land?
No, there are
and there could be
massive,
poor tribals, generational employees of Tata Sons much before the cutoff year. So,
there are
what do you think of
massive
this?
practical difficulties in that. Since I have worked on multiple books on India's freedom movement,
Right.
tribal freedom movement, I can tell you that if we have to go back to fix 1932 as the cutoff date for domicile, less than 10% of the state would qualify.
Right.
The figure could be much, much lesser. While a place like Jamshedpur has a shifting population. So while Sakshi may have been founded in 1908, but then the first generation of people who came here need not necessarily be settled over there. It's got a moving population, Jamshedpur. Similarly, Bokaro and Dhanbad, Bokaro, because Sale is over there, again has a shifting population. In 1932, even Sale was not there. Sale came in much later. Bokaro Steel City came in much later in the 1950s or the 1960s. So any which way, nobody from Bokaro would probably qualify if the cutoff date were 1932. But overall, it's a very impractical thing because, like I mentioned, Bihar was created out of Bengal somewhere in 1910 or 1912, if I'm not mistaken.
1914, yes. 1914, if I'm not wrong.
And then
Around that.
Jharkhand was created in 2000. But between 1914 and 2000, which is a span of good 86 years, we never felt that a Bihari was any different from a Jharkhandi. This is merely an administrative difference. So even, by that logic, any Bihari can claim that he is a Jharkhandi by domicile. So I think, this entire date of 1932 is extremely impractical. There is no way I see, us going ahead with it. The possibility of that is zero at this point of time, and that is one of the reasons why that bill is stuck.
Right, sir. Of course, that the BJP does not have any formal or precise policy on how they would be going about it. But given that you have written several books on Jharkhand, on the history of Jharkhand and political contemporary Jharkhand as well, what do you think should be the alternative to Khatian? What could be the way out to get the domicile done in Jharkhand?
No, why? I think this fixation with the domicile date itself is a bit problematic.
Okay.
Because one is assuming that your future generations would work in the government sector in Jharkhand, but that fraction is extremely low. The people who from the present generation or from the coming generation might want to apply for a government job, that fraction is extremely low. I think we need to be more aspirational as a society. We need to be more ambitious as a society. For me, if you ask me, even if 2000, that is my personal opinion, were to be the cutoff date, or even if 1985 or 1990, I don't think that makes much of a difference. Ideally, one should take a safe date 30, 35 years ago, which could be 1981, which could be 1985. But that, I think one needs, as a society, one needs to be more aspirational than sulking over for years and for decades on end. because essentially this is an age where we need to ideally promote entrepreneurship among the tribal population than telling them than telling them that you've got to grow up and make sure that you get a government job like your ancestors or like your previous generations have been getting. There is a definite need to make the tribal population an equal stakeholder in the entrepreneurship revolution which the country is witnessing. Because when it comes to biofuel, when it comes to some of the medicinal herbs, the tribal areas are most conducive in producing the raw plants from which biofuel is extracted. So
Right.
I think we need to make them more aspirational. The cutoff date for if you ask me personally, is not very significant. It could be anything between 35 and 40 years before, or 30 years before.
Okay.
That should be a safe date.
Well, the Raghuvar Das government did try to do that, but as Shakespeare had rightly written, if to do were as easy as to know what were good to do, chapels had been churches and poor men's cottages,
The problem
princes'
is,
palaces.
yeah, somewhere I think the problem is even today, those political parties which are out of favor, they feel that dragging a state back, or they feel that dragging the country back is probably the only way you can, change your fate.
So, but
But
it
when
did cause some repercussions in the state when the Raghuvar Das government tried getting this to, I think it was 30 or 35 years back, the domicile to be 30 or 35 years back, the Pathalgadi movement, if I'm pronouncing it
yeah,
right. I still remember discussions in our classrooms at Loyola about the SPT and CNT acts. And it was a very big issue in Jharkhand during the tenure of Mr. Raghuvar Das. And later, how the current president of India and the then governor, Mrs. Draupadi Murmu, had refused to give an assent to the bill. What is your take on this movement that generated the highest number of cases of sedition? Was it huge NGO, several PILs were take on
what happened was
movement.
really unfortunate. But like I have said, there are vested political interests waiting to use these NGOs, waiting to use some of the impressionable minds in these communities to their political advantage. At the center, the Congress has been doing it for a very long time, trying to create seats of divide. Obviously, in Jharkhand, JMM, which has a very confined vote bank, which constitutes Adivasis plus Muslims and plus Christians, and obviously for them, the Khatian and these are emotive issues for their constituents. So
Right.
but as a party, when BJP has always resisted the temptation of immediate and myopic gains for larger benefit of the country, I think for us we need to take an evolved stand. If you ask me, the
Okay.
Pathalgadi movement was more like some of these farmer protests which erupted at the later stage, the last 2 or 3 months, which clearly had a political backing. The whole idea was to unsettle the state apparatus and to disrupt the administrative process, which is what it achieved partially. But then I think that is not that the Pathalgadi movement does not reflect the sentiments of the majority of the tribals in the state. The majority of the tribals in the state want to move forward. They want to surge ahead with developmental goals, and they would not be dragged again in the kind of unsavory violence which Pathalgadi movement had seen in some cases.
So overall, do you think it was a failure of the state government to contain to make sure that the movement does not go out of
I won't
hand
say that. There
because
are times
it assumed a very violent nature at one point in time.
there are times when you are when you're taken by surprise, when you don't anticipate something like that. But I think barring the initial upsurge, the state government did a good job of containing it. Like I said,
Okay.
I mean, we as a party have not been talking much about it because it's an evolving situation. Many of these sentiments are maneuvered by parties like JMM, which know that they don't have a future or they don't have a backing beyond the
So, but this
beyond.
will be happening in the future as well if the BJP tries to bring in such
I
policies.
think
So, what is the
no,
idea?
no, so
How is the party planning to tackle it?
no, so that way, every time that India becomes strong, you will have a China, waiting to hit back at us. I think
Right.
we will approach the situation with more preparedness, like we do on defense issues. We will approach the situation with more preparedness and more sagacity, taking in as far as possible, we will try to factor in local sentiments. That's the only way forward.
But is it right to compare China with the locals of Jharkhand?
No, no, I'm not
Given
comparing
that
China.
the
I'm just saying that
okay,
in any situation in life, when you embark on something progressive, you will have
right,
challenges. Whether it is
right,
the internal security, defense of the country, whether it is your economic measures, or whether it is social reforms, the
okay,
challenges
okay.
would be inherent, and one will have to face the challenges the same way that with better preparedness by taking the local sentiments into many different things. It can't be.
So in December 2019, something very interesting happened in Jamshedpur. Although given my familiar background to journalistic fraternity, I had been hearing this, but I did not expect it to happen. 5 times MLA and a sitting chief minister lost his fortress to an independent candidate, Mr. Saryu Roy. Expulsion of Mr. Harpreet Singh Kale, and it is also said that various supporters of Mr. Arjun Munda worked against Mr. Das. And this humiliation of the party members in the state was listed as one of the reasons why Mr. Das lost his fortress. What is your view on this?
Well, in politics, there are a lot of things which happen which are the result of dynamics, inter-party dynamics. I don't have a view on it, honestly, because obviously it is for Mr. Raghuvar Das to ponder over why it happened, if at all it happened. I'm sure, the local unit of the party may have done a very exhaustive post-mortem. And there are times when for various reasons, a particular leader, despite putting in place different measures for the state's progress, is not very popular within his constituency. That there could
Right.
be different factors. It could be a perception thing. It could be an approachability thing. But having said that, I think I'm sure he has done his evaluation. He has evaluated the factors. Uh, I think we and as the party, I really have no mandate to speak about
Right, sir.
what really went wrong with him.
Do you have any independent view on that, on this issue, independent of what the
Well, like I
BJP
said,
thinks of this?
in politics, there are times when there is a lot of politics within the party. Sometimes there is
Right,
more politics within the party than outside. And it happens a lot of times because politics is about ambition.
right,
Somebody who's not ambitious will not make a good politician. Somebody who's basically meandering across the country on Bharat Jodo yatras, which are yatras without a cause, without any aim or ambition to target a certain number of seats for winning, and then
right, sir.
saying that so I think ambition is very important in politics. And the fact that BJP today has 20 crore plus members obviously makes it very competitive even within the party. So if at all there
Right,
was internal rivalry, or if at all, obviously there was internal rivalry, and Saryu Raiji was a part of BJP when he decided to contest and then he moved out. I think these things happen in politics, even in the U.S. elections. I'm sure obviously there were contenders even within the Republican, um,
right.
and the same happens with the Democrats. So I think politics is about ambition, and the more the merrier, because that also makes it very competitive. And without competition, you would have mediocre people ruling the competition. Makes it more, um, improves the quality, and makes sure that the best come up and succeed.
So, Mrs. Sita Soren, sister-in-law of Hemant Soren, the of uh, she's from Soren family, death rate. So, notice audience aware of Jharkhand sorry, was the higher of uh, uh, it has been a BJP from across joining. What will happen after a few years? Is this muting the idea structure of which finds roots
It's an, it's
are
an, it's an in the country has been progressing losing its critical class aims. Like political vision, those in the opposition who want a better future for the country, opposition who don't always want to end on the losing side, or obviously scouting for opportunities, not just in BJP but all across. So in Maharashtra, obviously you have people joining even the Ajit Pawar camp. You have people, congressmen joining Eknath Shinde. So I think the politics of this country, probably this is going to be the first time. Yes, the first time when a sitting prime minister would be winning the third consecutive Lok Sabha elections. This is the first time, perhaps, where in every election, forget anti-incumbency, there is a distinct pro-incumbency vote coming or getting added to him. So obviously, in this situation, the opposition is looking redundant, they're looking obsolete. And those in the opposition who feel they are capable, those in the opposition who feel they have been wronged, are obviously looking at better postures for themselves. So obviously, BJP being the largest party is the primary beneficiary because most of them are trying to join the BJP. But it's not as if BJP people are only joining the BJP. They're simply meaning to come out of the rut of losing time and again by being Congress allies.
So, do you think will it cause any discouragement in the people who have been a part of the RSS and then subsequently joined the BJP when they would not be given
like I said,
any opportunity? But
it's a new situation. The BJP probably it's an unusual situation globally because you don't normally have a prime minister winning the third time and with increasing majority.
So your implication is that it is not because it is not that BJP is trying to do something extra. It is because that the opposition is actually weak. Is this what you're trying to imply through what you're saying?
No, BJP obviously has fulfilled its promises.
Okay.
Whether but having said that, the opposition is also, one has never come across a weaker opposition in the last. An opposition which is bent on dividing the country, which is bent on creating caste divide, which is bent on reminding young students like you, aap kaun si jati ke hain, aapko apna hak mila ya nahi. This is not what the youth of this country wants. The level of human capital which has been created by 24/7 electrification, by most of the government schemes in the last 9 or 10 years demands a different level of a different level of political participation, which unfortunately the opposition is not providing them. So all of those people who are on the other side are looking for better news politically, they want to engage in more. If you look at what Raghuram Rajan has said yesterday, he has ridiculed India's plans or India's ambitions of Viksit Bharat. If you look at the way they have abused Kangana Ranaut, I don't think the average youth relates anymore with that negativity or with that pessimism. So obviously they want to align with the party which has a clear agenda. They want to align with the party which has. So for a BJP member, yeah, it's a peculiar situation because pre 2014 or we would struggle to find enough BJP workers because the other side was in majority. Obviously, this is a complete reversal of that. But as long as one is convinced about the party's commitment to its core constituents, which all of us have enormous faith in, I think the party, this is the only party which is very clear about its goals, about its objectives. I don't think the average BJP guy or the member is creeping on new participants joining in.
Okay. So I will get back to those issues again. I would really like to talk with you about the issues that you mentioned about, let's say, what the youth wants, the Ayodhya case and the 370 issue. Here's the last question pertaining to Jharkhand. So while the Union Minister Nitin Gadkari is determined to reduce usage of coal in India, it is something that would be affecting Jharkhand in particular. Let us say, even if the government does not have any such proper plan right now, and if I'm reading it wrong, there are high
Mm.
chances that the governments in the future would want to reduce or could even ban the usage of coal. Given the high contribution of Jharkhand's economy, given the high contribution of coal in Jharkhand's economy, what alternative do you think would help us adjust to our needs? Are we ready for that period when, let's say, there is a sudden ban on coal in the country, on the production of coal? What would be happening? How would Jharkhand be able to adjust?
I think it's still an imaginary situation right now, because one would, obviously exports of coal is an equally big business for the government right now. So I think that's a very imaginary situation right now. But again, the renewable energy sector is creating an economy of its own. Panels, solar panels, wind energy. I think renewable energy is the sector where huge investments are pouring into the country. So obviously, when over a period of time, one sector dies out or one sector um, fades out, there are other sectors waiting to make up for it. And I think renewable energy sector is where the action lies. The climate goals which Prime
But is
Minister.
Jharkhand ready for? But is Jharkhand ready for renewable energy? We do have a lot of dams there. We do have a lot of uh, rivers. We
Well,
don't
that's
have
the
that
way.
infrastructure to build such
So infrastructure
renewable
gets
energy.
created. Infrastructure gets created. In the Northeast, we heard of similar things. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the roads to connect different parts of the Northeast. But if you travel to Arunachal Pradesh now, you will be surprised by the seamless roads connecting you from Itanagar to across the state to the remotest borders. So,
Right.
infrastructure gets created. Elections were again seen with a lot of skepticism 4 or 5 years ago, but today you have societies, residential societies in cities who are actually planning their construction in such a way that they have ready charging points. So
Right.
infrastructure gets created. I think one needs to, in management, there is a principle called the big, hairy, audacious goal approach. You set
Okay.
massive targets which may seem insurmountable when you set them, but eventually, that only raises the expectations and that only raises the performance of your stakeholders in trying to achieve. I think that Modi ji has set that big, hairy, audacious goal model for India, where India needs to spruce up in every sphere, and renewable energy will be one of the, and is one of the key spheres which will be contributing to the economy significantly.
Okay. Okay. So we have recently seen a lot of politicians, commentators, uh, and even normal public who are protesting against the arrest of the opposition leaders, saying that the BJP is weaponizing government institutions like CBI and ED. And this is in context with the recent arrest of Mr. Arvind Kejriwal, CM of Delhi, and Mr. Hemant Soren, former CM of Jharkhand.
Well, all of them, most of these opposition parties are in a time war. In politics, money laundering apparently used to be pretty common, at least with the opposition party. Most of these cases involve money laundering. Most of these cases involve shell company, but the law has followed its own course. In the case of Hemant Soren, if you look at the land scam, prime property within Ranchi, some 4.35 acres were given away to, which in defense, were given away to people close to him at cheap throwaway prices, and obviously in Benami names. When it comes to Delhi, obviously the liquor scam has very clearly been established. There are courts of law where they can seek relief, but obviously even the courts of law are convinced about the the culpability of these people. And that is primary reason why Manish Sisodia over the last 13 months has not managed to get bail. In the case of Arvind Kejriwal, his complicity has been claimed by none other than his ex-OSD, Arun Nair, by the ex-OSD of Manish Sisodia, both of whom have corroborated his participation in all the meetings where the new liquor policy was being formulated. So obviously, and he had 9 summons. If he was like Aam Aadmi Party spokesperson's claim now, he was privy to information about a South group contributing so much to electoral bond. The 9 summons which he got was the best opportunity for him to come forward and reveal whatever he knew to the investigating agencies.
Right, sir. So, although all of us know that this is the timing is just before the elections, and I mean, even if they would have been, I'm nobody to comment on that because the matter is sub judice. But even if let's assume that the charges on which they have been arrested are right, is it not a coincidence that this is happening just before the elections? And we saw similar charges pressed by or accusations by the BJP against Himanta Biswa Sharma, who was later made the chief minister of Assam. And as popular joke goes by, if you join BJP, your corruption charges are dropped. So what is your view?
There are some 5,000 cases which have gone nowhere. So if you talk of Himanta Biswa Sharma, that also includes 4,999 other cases which have gone nowhere because the money laundering scams are not easy to prove. The money trail is not easy to prove. So by that logic, you can call Hemant Soren or Arvind Kejriwal really unlucky. But the fact is that did he indulge or did he not indulge in this form of corruption? I think that should be the moot point. And if a political party which was formed 12 years ago, the whole premise of changing politics, and the whole premise of fighting graft, if those people had very cleverly been indulging in their own, form of corruption, I think that's a pity. I think that is the more question, and that should be an important question over here. When it comes to timing, we don't dictate the timing. Dheeraj Sahu's the raids and his premises happened on the 4th or 5th of December, if I'm not mistaken, where 51 crore worth of cash was discovered. Had it happened during the assembly elections a few weeks ago, probably it would have helped us. But, we don't dictate the timing of these issues. The Supreme Court taking up the electoral bond at this juncture dictate the Supreme Court's timing. I think, the institutions work at their own pace. They follow their own processes. Constant insinuation that we are influencing the timing of investigation, the timing of arrest, I think is absolutely unfounded.
I would like to ask a question that goes on in the mind of every person who sits next to a stall or a coffee stall anywhere in the campus or anywhere across the country. Who is the potential candidate for the position of Prime Minister after Narendra Modi? Because given the current situation, yeah.
If you know the RSS and the BJP, these things don't get decided right away. So I think they would be decided. A few days before such a situation arises, when a change is needed or a change becomes inevitable.
Do you think it is pre-decided, or will it be decided based on the circumstances in the future? Is the person being groomed right now?
Nothing is pre-decided. Nothing is pre-decided. Okay. I think for the media, it's a pastime to keep guessing. For the party, I don't think it's even the remotest consideration right now.
Okay.
Because, like Amit Shah ji has mentioned, Modi ji is around for the next 10 years. Prime Minister Modi has been talking about 2047 goals, which again very clearly show for a very long time. So, I think it's really...
Would it not contradict his 75-year tenure in politics, the whole idea of having 75 years for the people?
We would politics. I think we would look at it once he crosses 75. But like I said, I think it's the opposition and the media which has all the time in the world to keep guessing who after Modi. For the average party worker, I think the average party worker is very happily consumed in the present and future goals.
Okay. I'm opening the questions, the whole space to everyone to ask questions. Piyush, Mihira, Khushi, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them to Tuhin Sinha. It could be related to the national politics of India as well, and I would highly encourage if it pertains to that. Piyush, would you like to ask?
Yeah, sure, Prem. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, my question pertains to around north, south, the try to it's like them that Indian government in there to towards the devolution of union shares which are given as the commission regulations. So for take on this.
So first of all, the entire north-south divide is an artificial edifice of Dravidian politics, which has been created by DMK. But I think it's waning, it's on its way out. Because honestly, we believe there is no divide. I recently, 10 days ago, I went to Solan and I visited a temple, a beautiful Shiv temple. The entire architecture, I was very surprised, had southern imprint. So across the country, whether it is Varanasi in the north, you will find a cohesive mixture of the culture of North and South India. So that's point number one. Culturally, there is no divide. It suits Dravidian politics and the proponents of Dravidian politics to manufacture this artificial divide. When it comes to the tax query, there were detailed tweets by Honorable Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharamanji. She has explained that no such anomaly has taken place. In fact, Revant Reddy, the Chief Minister of adjoining Telangana, has said he has no issues over tax, tax remittance, or the share of tax remittance from the central government. The point is, the Congress party today is a very pessimistic party. It thrives on fake agendas. You know, the rules are the same. The rules of tax sharing between the central and the state government are the same for all states. And there is no corroboration to the Congress charges which they have been adventurously or mischievously leveling at the central government.
Do you have any complimentary question? Supplementary or complimentary related to it or unrelated? Okay. Thank you, Piyush, for this question. So, all of us know that the BJP is vocal about the rights of the Kashmiri Pandits who were after a genocide they had to leave the Kashmir Valley in the 1990s. But we still have the refugee camps in Delhi where the living conditions are not up to the mark. So, how is it hypocrisy on behalf of the BJP that they are not actually doing anything on ground for a section of people they are vocal about?
No, I think it would be unfair to say nothing is happening on the ground because obviously the Kashmiri Hindu population has got domicile status. I know people who have gone back to the valley. They may not be settled over there, but they have been purchasing property. Their children have been applying for government jobs in Jammu. So I think, change has definitely happened. The few refugee camps that you are referring to, somewhere, I think probably, they're on the way out. But personally, I think changes have been happening all across in Kashmir and Jammu. In a lot of situations, I think the individual also, one needs to figure out whether those individuals in the camp are prepared to go back or prepared for jobs and opportunities. Because trust me, this is a government which believes in creating opportunities.
Okay.
So the few who have been left behind for reasons which we may not be aware of right now, and I think that needs to be known completely.
Okay. So how do you think Hindutva
Why only Kashmiri Pandits? The Shaila Rashids of the world are now appreciating what is happening in Kashmir. So I think everywhere the focus is not just on one community, but the entire development of the state, which is on its way. I think in the next few years, in fact, in the last few years, from 5,000 odd terrorists in 2016, now there are barely 100 odd, and those also are disguised as normal people because now they realize that there is something called it's a form of terrorism, which disguised terrorism, when they need to disguise themselves as somebody else during the day. It's called hybrid terrorism. That's the only way probably they can continue with their best business of creating problems. But that again is minimal at this point of time, barely 80 to 100 people with terrorist propensities may be left in the valley. So I think changes are all over. I think in the next few years, we will be prepared to see Kashmiri Pandits going back to settle there, provided they also want that, because I know families who have moved on, they don't want to go back. That's also a reality.
Right, sir. So this is a very sensitive issue in the student circles, given that it forms a huge part of the student union debates in Delhi University as well. And you have been a part of Hindu College, so you must be knowing about it as well. With the Pran Pratishtha of Ram Janmabhoomi, there is a divide in the idea of BJP. A certain section believes that that they should keep trying to reclaim more temples, other than reclaim as many temples as they could, which is infinite in number. And there's another section that believes that the uh, whole struggle, if I may put it like that, should stop at Kashi and Mathura. And this
No,
has been
I
the route. Is it
any here the own resurrection of Ram.
okay?
In
Has got
fact,
nothing to do with the Kashi.
I've been very quick on that. But yes, it's a fact that legal battles have been going on for Kashi, legal battles have been going on for Mathura.
Right.
So the party per se has nothing to do with it. Of course, is the way forward. It is between the parties involved and involved in both.
It reminds me of the Vikram, his worker a few years ago in the law of action. What is to to you, being as well? What is your idea? Please go ahead.
Hello, sir.
Hi, Khushi.
It's Neera, sir.
Okay, hi, Neera.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So, sir, I would like to start my question with this statement. So, sir, there exists a thin line between having a regional attitude and a nativist attitude. And so, taking this statement in the context of the vibrant democracy that India is, with every state of it having a very vibrant regional history. So, how do you think one can tread this balance and make sure that the development is taking place in an is inclusive and taking place in an equitable manner? And so if you could answer this in the context of the debate surrounding the subcategorization of the scheduled castes. Thank you.
Well, that the subcategorization of scheduled caste is something which the Rohini Commission has been working on. And I think over a period of time, it is likely to become a reality because like I said, even scheduled caste or scheduled tribe cover a very large number of subcategories, and often within the subcategories, the weaker subcategories get ignored. So I think over a period of time, there is a good possibility of the subcategorization legally, or for provisions of reservation become a reality. When you talk of a nativist attitude, what exactly would you mean now? What exactly were you referring to?
Yes, sir. So nativist attitude has a more exclusionary notion to it, where the indigenous population of a region, basically, there would be special safeguards for them, such that.
I think we have done away with this exclusionary attitude in the entire Northeast. These were lines of divide which were encouraged by the Britishers, the entire inner line where they wanted to keep certain communities away from mixing up with the general population, was essentially a British ploy to ensure that those areas where the tribals lived in the Northeast were away from, it basically facilitated an easy rule for them, because the tribals were concentrated and centered in one part, and there was an inner line to divide them out. So I think we've done away with that exclusionary mindset. And in the same way today, that the entire Northeast, which we like, for example, in the Northeast, I think these lines of divide were more apparent than any other part of the country. For example, the tribes of Meghalaya would be very alien to the tribes of Nagaland, and the tribes of Nagaland would find the practice of neighboring Manipuri tribes very alien. Day and age, I don't think there is any scope for ultra-nativism. Well, ultra-natives, when we talk of a global village, when we talk about Indians being global citizens, the fact that there are certain vested interests which want to keep certain tribes restricted to their original inhabitant zones is very regressive. And I think we've done away with this exclusionary attitude in the Northeast. We would ideally want to do away with this exclusionary attitude across the country. Those propagating in this day and age when technology and infrastructure creation makes the whole world come closer, I think are doing great disservice to their communities.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Sir, I have a last question for you, and this is I hope I wouldn't be opening up Pandora's box, but it contains to the Uniform Civil Code. What I wish to ask you is that there would be exceptions for various tribes, various let's say that some tribes that require protection in Nagaland or Jharkhand, or let's say even in Uttarakhand. It is expected that there would be such provisions that would make sure that certain communities, certain sects will not be affected by this. Do you not think that UCC would transform into another reservation in the future that would become a way for politicians to to play the game of electoral politics by promising exemptions from UCC? How do you think the BJP or the government is tackling it?
The UCC is a complex issue, and that is why we have let our state governments take the lead on it, rather than formulating a central policy and one size fits all policy.
So how is it a uniform civil code if the state governments are deciding what the policies?
So eventually, the state governments UCCs will pave the way for a national UCC.
Okay.
Ideally, these things should have happened many decades back, because with passing of time, the demands, many of which were contrived and artificial, have also grown. But UCC is required in a country which believes in uniform laws for all, and especially when it comes to polygamy. Obviously, Assam has found out a different way of tackling it by attacking polygamy directly and by creating anti-polygamy law. But I think a modern society has no room for polygamy, because that leads to dysfunctional societies and subsequently a dysfunctional society. So it's a complex issue, and since state governments have taken the lead, Uttarakhand has already implemented its UCC. Goa has already put its UCC in place. Over a period of time, the central government would ideally collate and put forth a plan which would work at the national level.
Well, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Neera, Piyush, Khushi, and Prem. It was lovely chatting with you. And the level of political awareness of you guys is quite impressive, which augurs well for the country. I hope you guys are casting your vote for the first time.
Right, sir. Right, sir. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Sinha. It was a delight for us to have you with us. We look forward to having you in our future endeavors as well. Thank you.